Thank you very much, Chair. Everybody, nice to meet you. My name is Ayoung Moon, and I don't think I have, I can represent South Korean society, and we have some other participants from South Korea. So you may add, you can help me to add diverse views and positions in Korean society. First of all, thank you for the opportunity. Actually, Fanny is a member of PEACEMOMO. When she was in Seoul, she was a very active co-activist in peace movement in Korea. So this opportunity came to me through Fanny. So it's also a great pleasure and happiness for me. Today, I prepared my analysis about this neo-Cold War issues. And at the beginning with the opening speech, already we shared about the current issues related to the military occupation of Ukraine by Russia. And also my organization also published a statement, two statements regarding that issue. So I will share later the link that you might read what we wrote in our statement. This is kind of very difficult situation, like neo-Cold War. So my question, starting with the question, neo-Cold War. Is it really a neo-Cold War? Are you sure this is the neo-Cold War? I think we are in the phase of confirming this situation as a neo-Cold War or not. We are watching this war ongoing. This is the proxy war. We are seeing the block between the West, maybe the East, I'm not so sure. Russia is the kind of representative of the axis of evil at the moment against the US. And the US wants to name them as the axis of evil. So I think the tendency is very similar, like before, the war on terror and everything. And for me, like my previous, the panel, my colleague, Nonoka-san, I really appreciate for your point. I think it is very difficult to fill the gap between the international issues with the local issues. And we always say that we need to do something local, but sometimes it's really difficult to connect. So I will try my best. As a female peace activist in Korea, it's also not easy to have my space to speak. And for me, like my observation here today, I feel like I have like mixed feeling because in Korean context, I'm not young. But now you're calling me young. So I was like, oh, now I'm young again here. I think age is a relative thing, right? Let me clarify, like in Korea, there is a law that regulates who the youth is. So if you are over 35, then you are not youth legally in Korea. So I'm not youth in Korean context, but now you're calling me young. So I feel like mixed feeling. And as a Korean citizen born into Korea City, I would like to share my questions and my concerns about what is going on now. So let me share my slide. Oh, sorry. Do you see my slide? Ah, okay. So my topic is peace as commons and security as commons. This is a slogan that my organization is promoting since 2020. We are focusing on how can we common peace by people. Actually, security is also the term which is dominated by the state. And we always think security is like national security. Although we do have the term like human security or environment security or feminist security and other concepts, but the power of the national security or military security is really, really powerful. So other discourses are being dominated by the national security. So today I'm going to share, it's my opinion and my observation, and you can anytime can intervene. So my question is, do you think the Cold War has ended? if your major is international politics or international relations, and then you might ask me like, what is your question? It is ended. But I always question to myself, the Cold War really has ended. Maybe some people can say that the Cold War has ended. No. But if you look at this image, I think Cold War never ended, and it is being repeated. Sorry, my cat is now yelling at me, so you might listen to my cat's voice. Excuse me. And I think we say that the Cold War has ended in the world history, but I believe the US and the enemy, this structure keeps repeating. And we see the flag is being changed. And I think it's being circulated. I don't know. So in this sense, I cannot agree that the Cold War is over. And from my observation, I don't agree with that the Cold War is over, but now new term is coming, like Neo-Cold War. Then I cannot agree with this new term as well. Are we going to accept this designed concept as a Neo-Cold War? The reason why I cannot agree with this term, it was the end of Cold War from the perspective of the US and the Soviet Union. So from their perspective, it's the end of Cold War. I agree. But from the perspective of Korean Peninsula, I don't think it's over. It has never been over. The fighting between the North and South, North Korea and South Korea, it has put into halt. The physical fighting is stopped. But the Korean War has not come to the end. It's still going on. It just stopped. So there is a campaign ongoing by the civil society and Moon Jae-in government, which will be the ending their period soon. They both work together for the campaign to end the Korean War. But it's very difficult and long way to go. It's getting complicated. And you know the result of the Korean society, the presidential election. So we are expecting another military tension between North Korea and South Korea, and also in Northeast Asia. So it's not in a good condition. So my argument, based on my observation and my life in Korean Peninsula as a Korean citizen, I do not think the Cold War has never ended. This is my argument. Maybe you can disagree with me. So my point is, perspective matters. From which point of view you are defining something as something. From the perspective of like world history or international politics or international relations, you might say that the Cold War is over. But from my point of view, as a resident of the Korean Peninsula, I don't want to say that the Cold War was over. It's your conclusion, not mine. And also, as I just mentioned with Nunoka-san's presentation, the local understanding is really difficult. The gap between local issues and the global issues or international issues are quite difficult to connect. So I would like to say that as a resident of the Korean Peninsula, for me, the Cold War is still ongoing. So international order, okay, I can accept. But my local order or my personal order, it is not. So as a peace activist and peace educator, I think how can we include the voice of the minority? You created this webinar to include the young people's voice. But my question is like, how can we open common ground, no matter what age you are? We can just be there together as a panel and discuss freely, like from like long experienced activists together with very young activists as a panel together. I believe such common ground needs to develop more. I really appreciate this setting of the webinar, but at the same time, maybe we can have another chance that we can have like all different age panels together at the same time. Another point of view, I'm not from the separated family, so I do not know about their life well, but I do have my neighbors from the separated family. And based on the perspective of human security, we need to ask the question, from the separated families in two Koreas, what does Cold War mean to them? The end of the Cold War really means something to them. Was there any changes to their life? There was no changes. There was like lots of efforts or attempts, endeavors to make peace between North and South Korea. Like the US and Soviet Union worked for, at the end of Cold War. As you can see from the picture, the President Moon and Trump, they met the leader of North Korea, Kim Jong-un, and they got spotlight. But the life of the separated family, the victims of the Korean War, those lives were still always under the shadow, in the shade. So for me, from the human security perspectives, I think it really doesn't make any change. So this is another my argument. The talks such as the end of the Cold War and the neo-Cold War, I think it's all offspring of the faith in the supremacy in the global order. We are like bringing and using their term as our term. It's not people's term, I believe. It's not grassroots. I think to build peace or to promote peace, I think we need some more opportunities for new imagination. We need to make a crack about the given structure and given order or given terms and concepts. Who defines what is really, really matter? So I don't want to just use a term which is defined, but for political communication and my professional communication, I need to use that term from time to time. But still, I'm stick to my argument. Then my question moves to this question. Who defines security? National security defined by the state? How about my security? How about Japanese young women's security? Young women in the whole world, what about their security? So when we discuss about this neo-Cold War, I think we need to build up from like grassroots level, the life of one person. We need to diversify our discourse about security and peace. And we really need to question who is defining the world order for what? So my observation, security is a signifier that dominated by the state. In my curiosity, in my eagerness is for how to bring it back to people's hand. How can people define security in their own language, in their own context, in their own lifestyle? So I wanted to discuss with all of you, should we just take what is given, or can we create another approach or another term? And we can make a crack, and we can make it very local, and we can bring the local security issues and my personal security issues to the international security issues. How about the life of the Ukrainian people? We can bring their life issues and their context to fight against this national supremacy discourse. And another thing, to bring the security as security to people's hand, I think we need to deal with the fear. I think the state defines security and they take their responsibility. They say that they have responsibility to protect people, like UN's agreement on R2P. Who protects whom? Where is the self-determination? So when the national security brings up the issue of fear and danger, and the state defines something as a threat, most of the people as a nation or as a nation of the country, they accept the given message from the state. In my role as a peace educator, I'm questioning, is that message right? Isn't there any other way to translate that message into another context? How many minutes do I have, the chair?
5.
Thank you so much, because I missed the timing to turn on my time checker. So how can we address the domination by the state on the term of security and the methodologies or all the means that the military means, and including all kinds of means that the state holds and states dominates on the name of protection? So for me, like, we really need to design another perspective, which is for peace building. I think we need to study together, we need to discuss together and bring some other concepts and other understandings and other perspectives to bring up what we really need for our security, not for the national security only. So we need to find a different interpretation as a solution to make it as a ground for the peace building discourse. And I called my colleague. His name is Francis Tae-Hoon Lee. He is a director and my colleague, director of TEPI, the Peace Institute with PEACEMOMO. And he said the word security is an ambiguous symbol for which social agreement or voluntary consensus is impossible and is at best an underdeveloped concept when applied to reality. What do you think about his message? I think we can discuss about it together. So I think the world is based on very easy ground. I might say it's a dichotomy. Everywhere we can find dichotomy. I think it's the simplest way and easiest way to define self and the other, us and the enemy. It is happening everywhere. Now Russia is the common enemy. And the US is not happy with China because China never says that Russia is their enemy. And the US is not happy with Korea because Korea didn't really point out the Russia as the enemy. So for me, like, this dichotomy is a very powerful mean to manipulate our rational understanding and our rational approaches in these issues. So for me, how can we go over this strong dichotomy and try to see beyond? There are so many different ideas and so many different stances and so many different groups, identities. From the media, international mainstream media, it looks like this, dichotomic. But I don't think so. If we focus on the grassroots level and the voice of the people, I think there are a lot of diversities. So how can you bring these voices into our discourse about security and peace? So my last point, this is my suggestion. I think we need to challenge the state authority. We need to question, why do you monopolize the threat interpretation? We think the safe life of women, young women, it is security. Environment security, climate crisis is the issue of security. Why the government is not doing your job? For my security. We can challenge the state. And second, we can also we can put the pressure to the state for the transparency of the mystified and securitized confidentiality of the state affairs under the name of national security and military security based on the traditional concept of security. We need more pressure. Civil society organization groups are not enough. We need people to jump in this discourse and make a pressure on the government. And lastly, by diversifying the security discourse, I think we can make the security sector as a commons as well. It needs to be under the monitoring of the citizens. and the people, and it should be managed by the representatives of the people as well. So these are my concerns when the new Cold War issues came up these days. In Korean situation, I wrote an article about the presidential election results and what I expect, what will be the future of the Korean Peninsula. I will share my point through the link later. Thank you for listening. This is my presentation. Ends here. Thank you very much.